Hi, I'm Douglas Saba with Visa. Welcome to our next session of Voices of Inclusion. I'm coming to you live from Little Rock, Arkansas. We're here at the site of the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Center, and I'm honored to be here today with Janie Barrera, President and CEO of Accion, Texas. Janie, thank you so much for joining us for this session.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate the invitation.
Great, thank you. Microcredit is a topic that is known globally. It's known globally as an issue of developing and emerging markets. But Accion Texas focuses on microcredit in the United States, and I think many of our viewers would be surprised to hear microcredit is an issue and an offering in the United States. Can you tell us about it?
Sure, you're absolutely right. Most people do recognize microcredit from developing countries, but in the early 1990s, the concept was actually brought here to Arkansas under that time Governor Clinton and that administration to see if access to credit would work in the United States in a similar way as it does in developing countries. Well, when the concept was brought to the US, it was more on the same way you would run a program in Guatemala or in India, in terms of peer group lending and in terms of small, very, very small amounts in the loan sizes. So most of the microlending programs in the US started that way, and you could actually put them in two camps. It was a credit-led camp and a technical assistance or providing education camp to the micro businesses across the country. Over time, what's happened is that we've learned to keep the character piece of the borrowing and the methodology and incorporate the laws and regulations and rules of the United States. In the US, we have usury laws for business loans. So 18% is the maximum, the interest rates that we can offer to our small business owners. Not necessarily in developing countries are there those limits for interest rates. We also have much more competition in the US because most of the time you do have more access to electric credit cards. We also have predatory lenders in the US, and so to make our consumers or our borrowers aware that we micro-lending organizations in the U.S. Not only are helping them with their credit in terms, access to capital, but also with their credit. Because what we do is we report back to the credit bureaus their payment histories with us so that eventually a credit score can move upward and so that eventually a customer can become bankable.
The Accion name is so well known as one of the early pioneers of microcredit. But people may not be familiar with what the Accion network and Accion Texas in particular is doing in the United States. Tell us a bit about Accion Texas.
Sure. You're absolutely right. Accion International has been around for 50 years, and they started in Latin America and now are a global organization working with partners across the planet. In the U.S., Accion International was the one that brought the idea to a few cities in the U.S., which was New York, Chicago, Albuquerque, San Diego, and San Antonio. They were looking for cities with strong Latino populations because at that time they were very focused in Latin America only, and so they felt very strong on helping the Latino population in the U.S. And so in 1994 they came to San Antonio and worked with local business and community leaders to get the organization started. So we're a separate 501c3 called Accion Texas. And now we work in 8 states. Not only, so our corporate name is Accion Texas, but here in Arkansas we are Accion Arkansas. And actually I'm the first employee, a staff member of Accion back 19 years ago. And when we started, we did peer group lending. We did very small business loans, but we learned very quickly that that is not the need in the United States. The need is much more complicated, and the technical assistance piece is very much needed as well. So we've incorporated both in Texas. So now we've become, fast forward 19 years, we're the largest microlender in the United States. We've dispersed over $145 million, and as I stated earlier, we serve 8 states. And we have a vision of becoming scalable one day. There's not one micro-lending organization in the United States that is self-sufficient, which means 100% of our expenses are paid by the revenue off the portfolio. So that's my goal, one day to have that as an accomplishment.
And an important goal at that, and thank you. What is the typical borrower like? What does that story look like of the type of client that you're serving?
Sure. 100% unbanked or unbankable, right? So because in the United States we have this thing called credit scores. Banks underwrite using a credit score in most cases. The average cutoff at a bank is 680. Our average FICO score, credit score of one of our customers is 575. So you can already tell that it would be a high-risk individual coming to us. But they're hard-working individuals. You know, they're the small grocery store in the neighborhood. They're the woman or man who owns a barber shop or a beauty shop, daycare providers. Folks that have lost their jobs. We had a customer who was in the air conditioning business for 20 years, got laid off, and he said it's the best thing that ever happened to him because he took out a loan with Accion and was able to start his own business and now has like 5 or 6 employees that work with him. We have that's on the lower end, and we've also working with more stable or more manufacturing companies as well. People who manufacture rice, for instance, and package them and sell them to local grocery distributors. So even though we're a micro lender, and you would think that it would be, you know, little rural, small businesses, we're actually more of the things that grow our economy, right? It's the dry cleaners, it's the painter, it's the landscape provider, it's those small businesses that really do affect the economy of the United States.
Many talk about the importance of financial capability, financial education, and for a number of your borrowers, I imagine this is important as well. Do you also work with the borrowers and provide them additional resources in addition to the access to a loan?
Capital, sure, we do, because it's a safety of capital for ourselves, right? Because if we know that customer is being successful in whatever needs that they have, and we can accommodate and take care of those needs, then that loan is going to be paid back. So we've learned that we have to have a wraparound approach with our small business owner, pre and post loan. And so what I mean by that is they may be good at their product or service, but maybe they're not good at pricing, or they may need some help in tax preparation. You know, a lot of our small businesses think, oh gosh, I don't want to report all my taxes because then I'm going to have to pay more. Well, they don't understand, if you don't report taxes and you don't report a profit, most likely you're never going to get a bank loan, because bankers are not going to be able to say, how can I give you a loan if you're not making any money? So on paper, we help them put their information together so that they can be successful in the future.
You're clearly a pioneer of microcredit and access to credit in the United States, the work that you've been doing as employee #1 of Accion Texas. What is one of the most inspiring stories that you have been involved with, a borrower that has really shown the power that this has?
Gosh, there's so many. I would think there's a Bernard's Creole Kitchen. Bernard and his family evacuated New Orleans at Katrina, and they really didn't know where they were going. Actually, their family was split up. Most of his family ended up in Houston, and then Bernard was in San Antonio with nothing. I mean, they left with a backpack kind of thing. But he wanted to get started again, and so what we did was we provided him a $5,000 loan to open up Bernard's Creole Kitchen. And now, fast forward now, 8 years later, he has the contract at a municipal airport in San Antonio, Texas, where he is serving hundreds of people every day in his kitchen, and is employing not only his family but also many of the other low income level individuals that are living in that neighborhood. So that's a story that I'm very, very proud of. And he is a donor to Accion and an investor to Accion. So not only is he doing well, but he's helping others do well as well.
Sure. So continuing the
gift
cycle.
That keeps on going, as they say.
Absolutely. Janie, thank you so much to the work that you're doing, the entire Accion Texas organization, the entire Accion family, for making such a difference in providing access to credit and advancing financial inclusion in the United States and around the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Doug Saba with Visa, coming to you from Little Rock, Arkansas. This has been another session of Voices of Inclusion.